things that we're all talking about, well, I don't want to say all of us, but if you are a college football fan, we are all kind of talking about, is college football broken? What does the transfer portal, what do all these things mean? How is this going to impact college football? Is it going to impact college football? What can we do to fix it? Is it gone forever? Are we in trouble? All these things, right? And so we are trying to figure out how much this transfer portal is going to impact college football. Because we don't know. And it looks like there's just a stream of people coming in and out. There's people moving, there's people leaving, there's people doing all these things. And so what I wanted to do, because I like solving problems and I like thinking about things like on a deeper level, is come up with some things that I think we could do to actually fix the transfer portal stuff and actually fix what's happening to make it at least make a little bit more sense and hopefully get a better handle on it. One thing though I do want to say is it's going to be hard to fix this, because the truth is the world isn't fair. The world isn't consistent. There's things that happen in life that if you have more money, you get away with more and things like that. So I don't think we can ever quite fix what's happening. I don't think we're ever going to be able to solve this whole transfer portal thing. But I think what we can do is put limits and measures on it to at least make things make a little bit more sense. And so I just wanted to make this video and share out some things that I've been thinking about that I think will help the product and I think will make this a little better. So the first thing I want to mention that I think will help the situation is if we don't allow people to do interconference transferring. So similar to what the SEC does. If you play for an SEC school, within like this, especially like this current transfer portal, you're not allowed to transfer within the SEC. And I think that's good for a lot of reasons, because it limits where you can go, and it might limit your want to transfer if you can't play within your conference. For example, let's just say you are at Miami and you want to get in the transfer portal. You can't get in the transfer portal and then go to Florida State because they're in the same conference. You actually have to move conferences if you want to play in the same conference. I don't know how much of an impact this will make, but I think just letting people know that once you're here, you can't stay here. Once you enter the transfer portal, that you can't stay here. You actually have to do something completely different. I feel like that just opens the world of possibilities. The second thing that I think that we should do is I've said this in a video. I made the video. I'm trying to get better at like putting the videos above here, or maybe it's above here. I don't know. But in that video, I talked about needing GMs in the NFL. I definitely think there needs to be a position created we need GMs like the NFL in college. I think this is a great opportunity to have a position that is managing everything that is happening, because this leads into my second part. I think that we should have cap limits for the total team, and I think that we should have salary cap limits for certain positions. So running backs, I think the room should cap out at a certain amount. I think the quarterback should cap out at a certain amount, and I think the total team should cap out at a certain amount, and I think that the GM should handle that financial aspect. The reason why I think that this can be a good thing is because if there is a standard amount that is being used, a team can use that amount however they want to. And just like the real world, everybody doesn't get paid the same amount of money. Everybody's not doing the same amount of job. And so it's like that in all sports. It's like that in the real world. So depending on who you are, you might get more money. So I'm using this very small example just to make a point. If you have $25 and you have if your cap is $25 and you have 5 people in the room, and it's 5 quarterbacks, your starter isn't going to get $5 just like the other quarterbacks. Your starter might get $10, and then you might have to take that $15 and divide that 15 by 4. It's just a way to make sure that everybody is getting something, but the university or the GM, not the university, the GM gets to decide, and the coaching staff gets to decide how they want to divide that money. This also leads to my other point. I think that student athletes should have to sign a 1-year contract about how much money they're making. Here is my point on this. When you sign a 1-year contract, whatever you lock in at, that is what you're going to get paid from collective money within that year. So for example, if I say I'm going to the University of Michigan, right? And I'm going to Michigan and I'm going to be a safety. And so I'm going to get paid $200,000 to be a safety at Michigan. And I decide to enter the transfer portal because Alabama's reaching out to me. When I enter that transfer portal, I don't get to enter the transfer portal and go to Alabama and make more money within my contract year. If I go to the University of Alabama, that's fine. But my salary at the University of Alabama is my salary at the University of Alabama. I don't get to make more money with my collective deal or whatever deal I have. I don't get to make more money because I'm going to the University of Alabama. My contract is the contract that I signed for a year. I think the problem with this will be when is the year contract signed? I personally think that if you have them sign the year contract and you keep them on a certain thing, that is what pro athletes do. You don't get to renegotiate your contract in the middle of the season. Or before, it's similar. And so that's why I think it'd be cool to have these contracts only for the salary requirements. Now, if you go to another university, if you go from Michigan to Kansas State and your contract is up and that year is up, great, renegotiate that contract. But I think if you get locked into a year, I think it changes the moving and shaking that's happening so much. The other thing I think that should happen, and I know some people might think like, if you haven't heard of anything else that I said that might be controversial, this might be, I think we should make it public. I think we should make it public what certain athletes or what the athletes are getting paid. Why? Because it's public in professional sports. And there's all these conversations of if you're an adult, if you're not an adult, and this and that. So why don't we make the salary public? Why are salaries public for professional sports? If we're saying that we're moving into a place where these these college athletes are being treated like NFL athletes, and this is free agency and all this stuff, let's make their contracts public. There should be a place where I could go to and I could see how the University of Wisconsin is using their money. I should be able to go on and see who's making what. Why keep it a secret? Why hide it? What are we hiding? Like, if we want, I think one thing I think that happens in life that messes us up is we have all these new rules and we have all these new things, but then we don't do a good job of being transparent. And so, the truth dies in the darkness. And when you're in darkness, you could be negotiating against yourself. You could be negotiating for no reason. One of the things that's really good about making things public is that we can all see it. So this whole story about like they're chasing a bag, they're doing this, they're chasing that, we'll be able to see it. We'll be able to see it. Why not? If you're acting like a pro sport, why not treat these athletes like they're in the pros? Why not? The other thing I haven't mentioned that I know some of you are probably thinking about is what does this mean for NIL? The problem is, or the truth about NIL is that's name, image, and likeness. And that's just like an endorsement in any other professional sport that you do. So in no other professional sport is the organization able to include endorsement deals in any contracts. Endorsements, NIL deals come and go. That is what it is. So you can't control NIL deals. You can't control if Lululemon decides to give somebody a name, image, and likeness deal. You can't control that if Amazon comes up to an athlete and is like, hey, I like you have a lot of subscribers, or you have a lot of people that are on your Instagram account. I'm going to pay you $20,000 a month to post about Amazon. You can't control that any more than you can control that in the NFL. You can control that in the NBA. So we need to not control NIL. And so some of you will say, well, that's not fair because the bigger schools will have bigger NIL deals and bigger schools. That's not necessarily true because the NIL deals are not necessarily coming from schools. The NIL deals usually come from other places and other people that want you to advertise their stuff. So let's make sure that we're not confusing the two. The other final comment I just want to say is I think we are so focused on getting mad at these student athletes for going to chase a bag and not wanting to compete and all of these things that we say that makes these athletes seem like they're terrible and it's their fault and they should stay because old school, you stay and you should whatever. And oh my gosh, shame on. We always say you need to stay, you need to tough it out, you need to do what you need to do. You need to compete because back in my day, I would compete and you don't want to compete. You're scared of competing and all you're doing is chasing a bag and all you're doing. Here's the reality of the situation. We need to take a second and pay attention to what's going on. These student athletes could be leaving because the leadership sucks. They could be leaving because they signed on to something and they were lied to by the coaches, and the things that they were promised by the coaches aren't happening. And so they have decided to leave. That has nothing to do with not wanting to compete. That has everything to do with terrible leadership. And I think when you, again, become transparent and you put all of these things out there for people to see, it will become very clear to you on if these students if these student athletes are chasing a bag, or if they're scared of competition, or if they just didn't like what you had to offer. If I'm willing to transfer from your program and go to another program and my contract doesn't change, I make no different change of money, maybe I just didn't like your leadership. Maybe I didn't like your school. Maybe you lied to me to get me here. Maybe I realized that this wasn't a good fit and I changed my mind. I think we need to stop assuming that these student athletes are only leaving to chase a bag and make more money. And if that information is public and that comes out to not be true, that whole narrative is dead. That whole narrative is not true. And so we are so quick to react and say, oh, they don't want to compete and they're chasing a bag. Or a university will say, we don't even have enough money, we can't compete. Whatever all of these things that people are saying, we could easily dispel those things if we put caps on certain things and if we had certain things working a certain way. The other thing I want to say is I know the argument here is going to be, yeah, but how is that fair? Certain schools have more money. Certain schools have more money. Yeah, it's like that in real life too. Amazon's making a ton of money. Amazon is impacting the way a ton of companies do business. It is what it is. It is what it is. This society is not fair. Life isn't fair. It's never going to be fair. It's not fair. Some people have different opportunities that other people will never get. That is life. And so I feel like we need to stop this narrative that things have to be fair and things don't have to be fair per se, because they're not going to be fair. But what things should be is consistent. And I think consistency breeds transparency. And if we can be consistently transparent and we can see what's going on, I feel like it would make the world a difference. So these are just a couple of my thoughts on how I think we could work to fix college football. I think the transfer portal is amazing. I think it brings a level of control to the student athletes. I think it allows them to be in positions that they feel are great for them. And I also love that I think it's put parity back in college football because people can just come and go. And I really think it helps like the athletes at a lower level get a chance to shine and go up. I also want to say, sorry if you can hear the noise in the background, there's kids outside racing in the neighborhood, and I have a lot of thoughts to say about that, but I'm going to be nice. So if you've been hearing that, I'm sorry. I say all of this to say, I think if we are able to have more transparency towards what these athletes are making, what they're doing, how they're moving, and different things like that, you almost can dispel a lot of things in that regard. And it almost puts everybody on the same playing field when it comes to the main things, because we often are getting things coming out about why people are leaving and why people are doing this. And everybody thinks that people are money chasing, and they could be money chasing, that's fine. But these are just my thoughts. Also, when you're watching this video, reminder that I have zero say over what happens. And so if you hate my opinions, if you hate all of my opinions, if you don't like two of them, but you like some of them, that's great. I'm just making this video just because I like thinking and I like using my brain and I like throwing out ideas just to see like how we can make this be better, because the truth is the transfer portal isn't going anywhere. And we just have to find ways to work with it and to stop trying to avoid it, because it's here and it's happening. And for some of us, it could be impacting our football team positively and negatively. And depending on who you are, it might have greater impacts on you as you watch the sport that you love. So I'm going to end this video here. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And I would just love to hear your thoughts just to like get the conversation going, because I love to see what other people are thinking about things that I'm passionate about and that I like spent time to like use my brain on.